The voice of Gen Z is 52 years old.
I like people. I like people. I like the way people behave.
Luca Guadagnino. I'm making a video on him, so I thought it was only right that I tried to learn to pronounce his name. Hopefully, if it's still wrong, then there's no helping me. I haven't seen all his movies. I don't do that much research. But I've seen enough, and I felt like I've seen more with how much challenges has been shoved down my throat, which is a crazy sentence to say, just based off what it looks like that film's about. But that's how big his films are. Big? Definition of big. 1, of serious size. 2, of considerable importance. Drake meme. These aren't the biggest films in the world, obviously. I mean, prior to Challenges, I think his biggest film financially was Call Me By Your Name. And that made about 43 million. That's like Marvel's catering budget. But they are big kind of culturally. Like Challenges has challenged Dune Part 2 this year with being like one of the biggest, most talked about films, at least online, which is where this current generation resides. And as I said, I feel like I've seen this film already, even though I'm still yet to. I'll probably watch it immediately after I make this video, which is kind of the wrong way around to do things, but hey, here we are. And that's because wherever and whenever I scroll, all I see is people talking about it, people memeing it, people posting clips from it, people having discourse around it. Effectively, this film has the streets, and this film has a hold of Gen Z. And it ain't the first time. If I had a penny for every time Luca told a film about young expression in different ways, across film and TV, I'd have 4 pennies.
Which is no wonder this would have happened 4 times.
Call Me By Your Name, We Are Who We Are, Bones and All, and Challenges. I'm assuming because I've only seen like half of these projects, I can't lie, that the characters in these films all range between like 16, 17 to like 30, early 30s. A lot of discovery, a lot of expression, a lot of sensual scenes, not a lot of sex though. This whole combination in his little freaky cauldron is turning out to be a hit, at least to those who have Letterboxd accounts. His movies are like a well-mixed meal that the last second before they got sent out, or like a rogue secret sauce poured over the top by a mischievous little chef. But instead of that chef getting 2 pieces of bread squished upon his head whilst being called an idiot sandwich, that weird rogue flavor somehow managed to work. And you can't help leaving his restaurant feeling like you just discovered the new best kept secret. I just think it's interesting how a man born in 71 is making projects that don't feel like they're reaching, to the audience they're portraying. Especially when there is so much more films and TV that are doing that, made by people far younger. And I felt like the main reason it doesn't feel like he's reaching is because he quite literally isn't reaching. In an interview, he was asked about what intrigues him to write about characters from that generation, and he said, I don't know what Generation Z is. Well, that seems pretty cut and dry, so that's interesting, but at the same time, adolescence is a state that is universal. Usually it's after a revolution. It tells you that you are someone that you are not anymore. You're not a child and you're not yet an adult. You struggle to understand the inevitable mutation that you're going to cross, physically, emotionally, in terms of intelligence, your interior world, your desire. That's what interests me. As time passes, the world changes, and it changes for the children growing up in it. There is so many inventions and innovations that seemingly completely shape the youth. It makes the finer details of their growing up feel so different from those before and after them. With that being said, they are just finer detail. And growing up with like a stick and a hula hoop you kind of roll down the road, or fucking TikTok, just finer details. And ultimately, none of these finer details that exist are really relevant to the bare bones that is aging, growing up, and especially not in the particular worlds that Luca is creating and wanting to tell. What he does feel is relevant are the characters and the actors portraying these characters coming of age, and skin that feels too small for them in a world that also feels too big for them. These things, as he said, are universal. And if you can write about youth in a universal way, then it'll feel real to all of those who had youth. And I think the main reason his stories feel so popular to this certain generation is because simply he's casting actors from this generation. I want to explore these characters with these actors. If they're actually part of Generation Z, that's interesting because I don't know anything about Generation Z. Much like how in sports you get a golden generation. We're currently seeing a bit of the same. The Zendayas, the Timothy Charlamagnes, the Taylor Russells, they're all intriguing actors who can convey the intricate stories that he wants to tell. It's just a happy coincidence, maybe. Also, he tells a lot of stories surrounding sexuality. He was born in Italy but spent his early childhood in Ethiopia, then left for Italy again in 1977 to escape the Ethiopian Civil War. He said he arrived in Italy as an outsider and he felt that way, but being an outsider often also makes you an observer, and you can notice a lot of things. He has been with his current partner since 2009, write about what you know. And all this molds together to make stories that are adept and honest, and probably ones that felt particularly big for a generation, this generation, that is hungry for that after receiving so many stories, maybe without that representation, or at least representation that felt authentic to them. So what I'm saying is that maybe he's not the voice of this generation. He hasn't made films for any particular generation, but a particular generation has gravitated towards them, which I think, like Luca said, at the very least is interesting. A voice of a generation, or a generation with ears for this voice.